Hello and welcome along to the Panto podcast. Entering his 51st year as a performer, pantomime legend Andy Ford is my guest this week. He tells me how he went from entertaining other children in his back garden to reaching the top and appearing at the Royal Variety performance. We also talk extensively about pantomime and his love of comedy. It's an absolutely brilliant episode. Andy's such a nice guy, and you'll want to find out more about him if you don't know already. So please sit back and enjoy the latest Panto podcast. My guest for today's Panto podcast is Andy Ford. Hello, Andy.
Hello, lover. Nice to see you, Hayden.
It's great, isn't it? Here, we're in your living room, and we're looking out over the fields and beautiful.
It's a beautiful place to live, and because I'm from the West Country, of course, I live in County Durham. My wife's from up this area and moved up. It's really like living in the West Country, but people don't talk proper.
Ah, I see.
But sometimes I go in the chip shops and I'll say, "Fish and chips, please," and the kids look at me like I'm from Mars. You don't realise how strong your accent is until you live somewhere where no one speaks like it, but they're friendly up here. I love it.
Has that ever caused problems then for you?
No, not really. Well, half the time they think we're farmers. When I first got together with my good lady wife now, her mum picked up the phone when I rang her once, and she said, "There's a farmer on the phone." We're not all farmers. I can't read, I can't write, but I can drive a tractor. No, we're not all like that. Some of us are very educated.
I see. But can you learn an education to tell a joke? That's the question.
Well, there's a long way to being a comedian is a long road, and I don't think it ever ends, really. Because when I started off gigging, and by the way, this past Christmas Eve was the 50th anniversary of my first paid gig, so I've been a paid performer for 50 years
Wow.
now entering my 51st year. But I used to start off playing banjo and stuff, ukulele, singing songs, and that moved on, and eventually I started joining bands, and it was all about the music, first of all. Although I love the comedy, I never really thought of doing it. So yeah, I was a singer, but then I had my own band. When someone broke a string, you had to fill in, so I started doing some gags, and that gradually took over. Then I started doing gigs as a comedian, but that was sort of 80s, when everyone was doing the gags that everyone else was doing because it was standard cabaret fare. And then when I met my wife in 1991, it was a holiday camp in Cornwall. She said, "Why'd you do them jokes then? Do you think they're funny?" in a northeast accent. And I said, "Not particularly, but everyone does them." She said, "I've got an idea. Stop dressing like a 50-year-old man." I was 34. Stop dressing like a 50-year-old man and singing New York, New York at the end of your show and doing gags that, when I think back at them, I'm a bit embarrassed, but everyone was doing them. Nowadays, you'd look at them and think, I suppose that was homophobic, although I didn't realise it was at the time. But when you look back at the gags, even the gags that were on TV, that are now blatantly racist, but our society hadn't moved that much. But by the time I met Michelle in 91, maybe it was time to move on a little bit, comedy-wise. So I actually started recreating myself from scratch, and as much as I put the hand inside of me to pull the comedy out rather than do everything that was around me. And I started, because I've always been a fan of the Goons and Python and surreal comedy, I wanted to go down that route. But I wanted it to be physical because I've always been a physical comedian. So I started looking at children and the way they moved and tantrums and stuff. And, you know, when a kid is feeling that this probably ain't going to work as a podcast, but when a kid's a bit tantrumy and goes, it looks funny when an adult does it because the two don't really marry up. So I like that. I like the thought of being naive and silly and surreal, but still doing gags. I changed the clothes I wore. The tuxedo went. I'd whatever 1991 had to offer clothing-wise. And so it was completely different. And the upshot of me changing everything was I got no work for 2 years. No one wanted to book me because I was a safe cabaret act that was doing gags like probably my mother-in-law gag, even though I didn't look old enough to have a mother-in-law. I was doing what everyone else did. So I redid it, started from scratch, found the comedy inside of me, and nothing happened for ages. But I stuck with it. And within 2 years, I did the big talent show on ITV with Jonathan Ross. And I lost by 1 point to the eventual winner, but they put me on the Royal Variety Show, and the Royal Variety Show was hosted by Des O'Connor, who loved what I did. And then I did the Des O'Connor show for years and years. And he actually used to introduce me as, he really is like this, please don't adjust your set. And it made me feel so good because all the years that the agents had sort of said, no, you used to be a safe act. I can't put you out now because 50, 60% of the audience won't get it. But I knew that I had to find my own audience. And they're in Panto crowds. They get it as well because the parents pick up on the subtlety of the humour, but the kids like the physicality. So when I got into Panto, that was like, gave me license to be who I'd always wanted to be. And from the Panto, I would then go back to the same theatres and do a stand-up comedy show. And the audience that came to see me in Panto would come along to the stand-up show and they'd bring their friends. And that's how it all snowballed in the West Country. But first of all, it was quite hairy. I thought, are people going to get into this? But so in a way, sort of Panto saved me, I think.
But you were always true to yourself. Then.
Yeah. Well, when my wife gave me permission. Well, up until then, do I think I didn't have a back? No, I did have a backbone, but it's just I had to do what brought in the money. And to be a comedian, I mean, Jim Davison actually, do you want to pick that name up I just dropped there? Jim Davison actually said to me once, are you a mercenary or a comedian? Because I was doing holiday camps and screaming my head off and running around anything to keep people occupied just to get through the time. And that hit home, really, because I don't want people to think, yeah, he was all right, whoever he was. I want people to think, oh, that Andy Ford's really funny. So I've never seen anything like that in my life. And I've been to Whitby, you know, that sort of thing. So I just wanted people to get on board with my comedy. And I know not everyone's going to do that, but I'm happy now. I'm knocking on a bit now. I know who Andy Ford is. I know the comedy that comes from inside of him. And yeah, I'm loving it. Panto.
Were you a funny child then?
Physically. No, I've got memories of desperately trying to make my friends laugh and making them laugh. Yeah, all right, but I used to, the age of 5 and 6, I was doing shows with my cousins to my parents after dinner on a Sunday and doing songs and jokes, and we'd do circuses in the back garden and sell tickets to people in the street. Yeah, I've always done it. I was a head chorister at Whipton Barton Church, St Boniface Church, for many years. So I thought I was actually going to be a priest at one point, because I was sort of following that road anyway. That all changed, but being a chorister was performing, really. And I did auditions. I do talk forever, just jump in.
You're
whenever.
fine.
I did opportunity knocks. I was meant to be on the series on TV. It didn't happen, but when the series finished, Hughie Green did a tour of it. And I did it in Torquay, I think it was Torquay. So I did opportunity knocks, and he loved what I did on the show. And I met Freddie Starr, because he'd been successful on opportunity knocks and he was gigging in the area or whatever. And I was 18. And he walked past me, I thought it was Freddie Starr. I said, hi, Freddie. And he went, all right, and punched me in the stomach. That was it. There's no big ending to that story. That's it. He punched me in the stomach and walked on. I had no idea why, whether he thought it was hilarious. And I laughed a little bit as I tried to straighten myself back up. But I wanted to do Opportunity Knocked. I was meant to be on New Faces. I've had more breaks than a Kit Kat, man. And at one point, I wrote a song that got into the final 12 for the 8 that would go on TV to represent Britain in the Eurovision Song Contest. So I was, still being a singer in those days. I've done some. One of my records was featured on the Radio 1 Road Show, and I was interviewed by Gary Davis. We haven't got time. I've done so flipping much.
You have, haven't you?
I'm still going, and I'm still enthusiastic. I still love what I do.
You can't keep still. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah. Well, I'm already thinking. I've written plays and pantos and stuff, and I've got a project in my mind which I can't give away. I've spoken to Steve McFadden, who I worked with this year, about it, and he thinks it's a great idea. So that's my next one-man play about someone very famous who's no longer with us and quite controversial. And I'm really looking forward to writing that. So I'm going to read it on the plane over to Mexico and then hopefully start shaping it in my brain. It's going to be funny, it's going to be heartfelt, it's going to be controversial, it's going to be quite painful. He's no longer with us, this guy, and he was looked at from various different angles. Some people loved him, some people hated him, but at his heart he was a comic. So that's my next project.
Oh, intriguing. And are you going to tell me after we finish recording?
Yeah, I'll tell you afterwards.
Oh, great. All right then.
But if
listeners,
if on your out you mention it, I know where you live, I know your mother.
What do you do then to relax?
I'm not very good at relaxing. I mean, when we go on holidays, shallow lie there for ages. I have to walk up and down the beach. I always want to get the next gag, write the next gag, really. That's a big thing to me.
You're kind of devoted to it, aren't you?
It's who I am. I mean, there's no, it's not smoke and mirrors. This is who I am. I love comedy. I live for comedy. Do you want to hear about how it all opened up in my brain?
Go for it.
I was 11 years old. If you've seen some of the stuff on YouTube, you might have heard this story. But I was 11 years old, and I went to a grammar school in Exeter. And these guys came around, I suppose it was all legit, and said they were collecting for what was called a spastic society in those days. And it was a show in Exeter in the evening, and they needed people to go with the little, what do you call them?
Like collecting tins.
Collecting tins, 2 words, well done. Awesome. And so I had to go home and ask my parents. It was the Morecambe and Wise show. And I love Morecambe and Wise in Exeter. So, and they were on for 2 nights. And these are the days before health and safety, before they invented that. We actually sat on the steps in between the seats with our collecting tins. 2 words. And what a lineup. Mrs. Mills on the piano, just so brilliant, just probably not the greatest pianist in the world, but personality. Oh my God, she was awesome. Norman Vaughan, swinging dodgy. I think the Johnny Wiltshire Sound was the group that used to support Morecambe Wise. Was it Des Lane, the penny whistle man? Anyway, hell of it. And then out they came. So the first show was, I would say, about 6 o'clock. And out came Eric and Ernie. I'm rolling around on the flipping steps now. I've never seen anything so funny in my life. But here's the thing. I'm 11, right? 11, 12. I'm thinking, they're making all this up. He's picking on them over there. Oh, my God, they're making it up. It's so brilliant. Collected. Second show, second house. Came out again. Now my 12-year-old brain's saying, well, what they did in the first show went so well, they decided to put it in again. Third show, fourth show. And it was like, boom. All the ad-libs are rehearsed. They're rehearsed. They know exactly when they're going to make each other laugh, when they're going to point to someone in the audience, and everyone will think, oh, they've just come up with that. And I know when some people hear this sort of thing for the first time, they feel like, oh, I'm being done. But I never thought that. I always thought, what a skill that is for making people think that you've made a mistake and then getting out of it. And I'm sure a lot of the ad-libs were original ad-libs, in the first place. And then they worked on them and they were so slick that they looked not slick. And for all comedians listening to this will know exactly what I mean, because if it looks too contrived, people don't believe it. And they were experts. Well, when you think of it, they were honing those skills, on a Monday night somewhere in Morecambe, at 6 o'clock house, where Ernie once described the front row as looking like they all wanted to kill you. They learned how to hone all them skills. So, boom, at the age of 12, I didn't go into comedy then, but I just knew that had moved me like nothing else had moved me in my life. It was like my eureka moment. And I wrote a play about the life of a comedian called Funny Ha Ha. And I put that in it because it meant so much to me.
Did you meet them?
This is one of the regrets of my life. Afterwards, all the people that collected, Eric and Ernie came out to say hello. I was so scared I held back. I didn't go up.
Oh, bless you.
I didn't go up. And, I've met so many people since. And when we were up in Blackpool, when I was working with dear Frank Carson, we went over to the Grand Theatre one day when Bradley was rehearsing with Norman Wisdom for a lottery show. And there he was. Norman, I met Bradley afterwards. I know Bradley a little bit. And, but there he was, Norman Wisdom. And Michelle said, he's there. Go and say hello. And I was, even at that age, I was scared. I don't know why. So I went down and I said, Norman, my name's Andy Ford. I'm working with Frank Carson on the Central Pier. I'd just like to say hello. He said, yeah, I know who you are. Oh. How great was that?
Isn't it just?
Yeah. So, he said, good on you, mate. He said, and keep doing it. And I do, and I went through, when I've been through some tough times in the business, I've had letters and texts and emails from other comedians saying, keep going, we've all been there, get your head down. It's a great community. I mean, everyone's competitive because they want to be the most successful comedian, but we all got the same scars. So we know exactly how someone's feeling, because a mate of mine, Jimmy Tamley, I didn't see it, but was on Britain's Got Talent recently, and apparently Simon Cowell walked out on him when he was doing a routine ventriloquism. He had the mask on Simon, he was doing the comedy, and Simon got arsy about it or something and walked off, and it was all in the news headlines, and it was a big break for him, and it all went the wrong way. So I knew exactly what he was feeling. And all comedians, comedy is not a plain sailing career. It ain't, because there's a lovely expression is, if people don't like a singer, they say, really not my style, but good luck to them. If they don't like a comedian, it's like you've broken into their house and killed their family with a machete. For some reason, and it's, I'd have, like on a cruise ship, someone would say, you're not funny. And I would say, yeah, but you just didn't understand what I was doing. And I would defend myself. And then now I think, actually, he's right. If he didn't find me funny, I'm not funny to him. Because you can't tell someone that their sense of humour isn't right, because everyone's sense of humour is their own. And that's now the joy of me playing to people that want to come and see Andy Ford. When I do my tours and stuff, it's people that like me that come and see me, so they know what I'm going to do. When you're on cruise ships or wherever, and please welcome tonight's comedian, you've got 500 people in the room with 500 different senses of humour, and maybe, say, 30% really get you. That means there's 70. I was always good at geography. That means the other 70 don't get you. If those 70 didn't turn up and you just played to the 30%, you're going to have a great night.
Stormy gig, yeah.
Yeah, but if the people that are also there that didn't know what you did and have decided they don't like it, do you know, it's quite complicated. That's why it's a struggle in the first place for a comedian to establish who he is and build a following. And I've managed to do that over the years. Not as big as some of the guys that are on TV all the time, but I've built a following. People know what Andy Ford does, and when they come to see him, they know what they're going to get.
Did you come from a theatrical family then?
My dad was a pub singer. I'm making a lot of noise on this table. My dad was a pub singer, basically. My granny Mockford, my real name's Andrew Mockford. My granny Mockford was a singer. She used to like sing in the old age pensioners clubs and stuff like that. But when my dad was growing up, he'd sing with his mates around the piano in the pub, and he loved it. So when I started gigging at the age of 12, my dad he didn't drive. We used to go on the bus. I'd have my banjo, and we'd go on the bus into a social club in Exeter or a pub. And Dad would support me all the time. But I put a little bit of strain occasionally on my mum and Dad's marriage. I remember once on their wedding anniversary, I had a gig. It was Boxing Day. I had a gig. And Dad went to the gig with me rather than being with me. I remember the fight after that. But they're still together. They're both 88 this year and still cracking on. But my dad was the inspiration for me to do what I did. And when I was, 10 years old, they got me a banjo. My uncle got it for me, and they had no money, my parents, but they paid for banjo lessons. And Dad would teach me songs in the bedroom, There is a tavern in the town, all that sort of stuff. Wurzel songs, Adge Cutler. I did a tribute show to Adge Cutler. Well, I've done 2 different ones because he was a big inspiration to me as well growing up. And West Country, funny, sounded like me. George Formby, love him as well, and funny again. It was always the singers that were humorous, Lonnie Donegan. Those are the ones that attracted me in, really. I can't remember what your question was.
It was if Mum and Dad were supportive.
Yeah, they were.
Oh, sorry, theatrical family. That was
theatrical family. Yeah, Mum can't handle watching me. She still struggles now. She came to Panto last year in Plymouth, and she enjoyed it, but she just gets herself in a... She said, if someone don't like you, I can't handle it. And because she loves me so much and she can't bear that. But in my business, of course, it don't work that way. You will get people that hate you because you're a comedian, and not everyone loves what you're doing, but some people do.
Does she use social media then? Because can you imagine what she'd be like if somebody...
She wants to, but I mean, she had a computer or a iPad or something someone bought for her, and she's got a Facebook account, but she don't know how to do it. They struggle with mobile phones.
Thank goodness for that.
Yeah. Although, I have been pilloried a bit, but most of the stuff's fairly positive. Yeah. And then the beauty of I've got my own Facebook and all that stuff. And if someone's horrible on it, you just block them, do you?
That's it.
I don't need that in my life. If you don't like me, fair enough, go and support someone you do like.
Exactly. That's what it's all about, isn't it?
Exactly. But I used to sing in talent shows with my cousin, who's now he's quite high up in the police, I believe. We called ourselves the Junior Cousins, and nothing says rock and roll more than that name, the Junior Cousins. And we used to enter talent contests and sing California Here I Come by Al Jolson. That's because we were hip. Oh my God. Look, I've written all these notes of stories I'm going to tell you, and I haven't got to one yet because I just talk.
That's the idea with the podcast, though. Yeah. People want to hear your story, and people want to... you just let it flow.
Well, just let me do a mime, see how that goes. Yeah, not too bad.
Did you go and see Pantos as a child?
Not that many. I didn't get into Panto till fairly late, I think I was about 36, before I did my
That is
first
late.
one. Yeah. I'd always wanted to do it with my first wife, and took our young kids to a couple of local pantos, amateur dramatic, and then once I saw Danny LaRue, and who was to become a mate of mine, Alan Stewart, the impressionist in Plymouth, and I had a lovely story. He's no more longer with us, so I can tell it. And people in the business know this one. Apparently, I think it was Paul Elliott was the boss guy, so he'll probably tell you. But so Alan Stewart was killing it as Wishy Washy, killing it. Loved him. He's a very talented lad, and. Danny started the show, obviously. Apparently picked up the phone one day, this could be legend, to Paul Elliott, and said, "Hello, darling, too much wishy." Isn't that beautiful? Too much wishy, darling. And so whether they cut him back a bit or not, but he was fantastic. I've never really, I was warned that old dames would want to stand on your comedy because you're the new kid on the block, and not want to help you out. I had so many stories of that, but I've been very lucky with the dames I work with. They've all been very generous. So when I started touring in Panto, oh blimey, so we had let's call it a charabanc. It was a coach, and we'd put the set. My wife designed the set, Michelle, for a West Country agent, put the show together. And we'd load it up at 5 o'clock in the morning, drive to the middle of Wales, set it up in a sports centre, do the show, pack it all away, drive all the way back if we could get through the snow, staying at Travelodge one night, staying in Travelodge for an hour and a half, and then had to go again. But you learn so much, and Adrian Varco was a Bristol-based dame, and I learned so much from Adrian. Oh God, what a great guy. He used to call him Mother, and his lovely expression was, before I went on stage, put your finger in the red and go and make him laugh. And he had his makeup there, and I had to put my finger in the red makeup, go around with my finger, put it on my face, and he wouldn't let me go on stage without putting my finger in the red, putting the
rosy cheeks on. Yeah,
it was too much. When I look back at it now, I think, oh my God, that's ridiculous. But every show he'd say the same thing, and we toured and we played all over the place. I learned a lot in them days. That's before I did any theatres in Panto.
What was your first theatre then?
Whoa. Well, now this is a bit of a story. It was in 1900, when was it? 1997. Was it 97? Might have been 98. Anyway, so I'd done the Royal Variety Show, and it was too long, the show, and they cut a few bits out, and I got cut out, and Stephen Mulhern got cut out, and a couple others. They cut some songs from other people because it just overran. So devastating. And I'm now doing a show for E&B Productions in Bournemouth, and I'm in rehearsals in London, and my wife's on the phone crying. My agent couldn't do it because she had to tell me that I'd been cut from the Royal, and that me and my then manager Brian Marshall had taken £1,000 ad on the back of the stage. See Andy on the Royal, all that. Yeah, I mean, absolutely devastating. So that was my first theatre panto. So I was at my lowest ebb, and just walking along the beach in Bournemouth trying to pick myself up. And then one day, company manager or someone came in and said, read that. And it was Des O'Connor talking to Gary Bushell, saying that Andy Ford is going to be the next big comedy thing, and I'm going to have him on my show and all that. I saw him on the Raw Variety. It was his spot was cut, but that was wrong because he was very funny and blah, blah, blah. And suddenly my chest came out and I felt confident. And I worked with lovely Sean Canning, was the Captain Hook, and I was Mr. Smee on that one. And there were no big names on it, but it was great at the Pavilion in Bournemouth. And so that was a tough time for me. And we were driving back from rehearsals or something from Bournemouth, and lovely Joe Pasquale must have rung me 6 times on the journey back. And I was driving, so he was speaking to Shao for a lot of it. Is he all right, Shao? Is he all right? She's, yeah, Joe, he's going to be fine. Tell it happens to all of us. Tell him to keep going. He's all right. He's all right for driving. And, 6 times on that journey, he rang just to check that I was okay. You don't get more supportive or lovelier than that. And when I did the Des O'Connor show, which was the year after, I think, when I was in Blackpool, I was running through the material, and Joe Pasquale and Tony Joe from the Grumbleweeds took me out for a meal. We had the meal in Giggy's, a great restaurant in Blackpool. And they said, right, give us your material. So I did the material at the dinner table, and they all went, yeah, good. And then I said at the end, and I said to Joe, but I really want to do this. And he said, what? So I did The Garlic Crusher, which is a poem, a surreal poem that I did. I'll do it for you if I can remember it. You're my garlic crusher. You flavour up my life. You save me half an hour's chopping in all the stress and strife. You're my garlic crusher. You aid my butter taste. I love to squeeze your handles and watch the garlic push through your face. You're my garlic crusher lying in the drawer, waiting for me to take you out, but I don't mean to the cinema. You're my garlic crusher. You cost me £2.50. No, £2.20. I realise with you around, my life is not so empty. You're my garlic crusher. And I did that, and Pasquale went, you gotta do that. You have got to do that. So I fitted it into the Des O'Connor show. First time I did Des. And they edited it to be the last bit on their My Out. Boom, it Brilliant. Went absolutely crazy. And that first Des O'Connor show I did, the lineup was Des O'Connor, Cliff Richard, Glenda Jackson, Ben Elton, Shania Twain, and Andy Ford.
Wow.
I've still got a video of the credits. So yeah, that garlic crusher thing, I was being quoted all over the place because it was surreal and stupid but tender.
Yeah,
and it was, comedy that hugs you. I mean, some comedians will slap you in the face. I like to hug my audience comedically. Oh God, I sound pretentious, but you know what I mean.
I know exactly what you mean,
and that's what works great for Panto.
Rather than just using a stock script as well.
Yeah, and plus, I know I'm that person. I am a softie because I get upset when people don't like me. I can't sleep if someone's been really horrible to me. I hate it. I like to be loved. I always have done. It's my parents' fault being too nice.
Hopefully they'll listen to this.
Yeah, someone will have to take it round to them because they'll never get it otherwise. But I'd like them to hear it because Mum and Dad, you were very supportive of me and I love you loads and you know that.
Oh, you're just a big softie, really.
I am actually, not particularly big, just fairly attractive, but not over large. I have no idea where this is going.
Do you like then the self-deprecating humour in pantomime as well?
Yeah. Number one, Charlie Chaplin. Stan and Ollie. I mean, that's why people love Stan so much. Most of my comedy is aimed at me. And all the trips when you walk across a stage and trip, the kids love it. But what it's saying is, this guy's not as confident as he thinks he is. He's got vulnerabilities. He can't even walk properly. And that's all sort of psychosomatic for the audience because they see vulnerability. I don't think people will laugh at. Can I say some more ass?
Yeah, you can say whatever you want.
I've said it now. You can beep it. Did it get beeped? People love. I mean, Bob Monkhouse, who was complete and utter genius, was never really loved until he got a lot older and he became Uncle Bob then, because he always said he didn't have what Norman Wisdom had, which was lovability, so he had to go a different route.
He kind of was smarmy, it's not in a nasty way, but he was
completely
slick.
smarmy and clever, and I'm a lot cleverer than the people that are listening to this. But that was his style, and it's great because there was a box for that comedy, and he was the number one person in that box. Like the Frankie Boyle has become the number one person in the horrible, cruel comedy box. But although that style of comedy is not my favourite, I do understand how brilliantly clever he is, and I'm sure he works on it for age. I can just imagine with a pen and pencil, I'm so old, with his pewter, going through lines and deciding that word is not as denigrating as that word, and if I use that word, that makes the tag word. I'm sure he does all that stuff that we comedians do, because words are so important. So because I teach comedy as well, and I've got a course called Confidence Through Comedy for people that want to be able to tell a gag or be able to just have a conversation with their friends. And I teach some comedy stuff. And it's very important that you find a character that you believe in that's sort of part of you. It's no good going out there and trying to create a character that's nothing like you, because it won't hold up. So I'm sure there's a side of Frankie Boyle that is a little bit upset at what's going on around him and wants to dig at people, and he's manifested it in that style. But whereas I think I'm quite a caring, loving person, and therefore my comedy is fairly soft and gentle.
Kind of born to play buttons, weren't you?
Yeah, that always, and it's still my favourite. Still my favourite role. I do love Smee. I love Mr. Smee. But especially as I'm getting older now, I worry that if I look too old, declaring love for Cinderella might look a bit dodge. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. But then again, it's pantomime and you sort of suspend your disbelief.
You do, but I wouldn't, there is a story about a very famous comedian who was saying, I love you, Cinderella. I love you too, Buttons. And he's like 75. And I don't want to be, and I won't say who it is, very famous. I don't want to be in that position where it doesn't look right to the audience. Yeah, we do suspend belief. But I'm very lucky in as much as I know my product. And my hair is naturally brown, that's what it says on the box, so I'll go with that. And I know how to look after this product, and I don't think I look my age, particularly when I'm performing, because my character is quite soft and childlike. So I like to think I'll be able to do the lead comic role for a good few years. Yeah, I can't see myself ever doing Dame. I've been asked to do it, but it's such a skill set. And I don't know if mentally I'd be right for it. I've worked with some fantastic dames. Brian Burden, Eric Potts, Nigel Ellicott. Did I work with Malcolm Lord, Kenny Gibson? Loads of them. And they're all, and they really, really care about their profession. They are, a lot of them are comedians that became dames, but they're dames, really. You look at them and they're just dames, and I don't know how I would be a dame, because it doesn't feel right for me. And loads of producers have asked me to do it because they're a dying breed as well. But I think lead comics in Panto are a bit of a dying breed, because listening to your fantastic podcast with Freddie Davis the other day, there's nowhere for people to go and learn how to do that. If you go into comedy now, you're probably doing comedy clubs and venues, and it's great and funny and good, and it'll get you straight on the telly, blah, blah, blah. But if you do decide you want to do a pantomime, you'd be starting from scratch, because you can rip up almost everything that you know about playing a comedy club when you play to kiddies, teenagers, mums and dads, grands and granddads, great-grands and granddads in one audience. It's a completely different skill set. So I want to carry the torch as long as I can, Dan, because I enjoy it so much. And another thing, although I've been doing the comedy teaching now, I would really like to, a friend of mine, Kev Orkin, is doing a Panto school now. That's how I thought of doing that years ago, to just help hone people that are put into a situation when they're going to be a lead comic, because nowadays a lot of guys come from TV and they're lovely personalities and stuff, but learning the script and knowing how to deliver a gag with other people around you it's quite a different thing. So I'm happy to, I've said to a lot of the producers, I'm happy to go to rehearsals and just talk through stuff if you think, it'll help. Because I think it's so important that we keep pantomime going. It's just so important. And not only keep pantomime going, but keep the skill sets going. Otherwise, it'll turn into a different beast. And part of the lure of pantomime for people is that, now, this is going to sound contradictory, but it doesn't change. Yes, it does, in as much as there's 3D stuff and dramatic effects using modern technology. But the actual core of pantomime, the reason you're there and the reason you love it, mustn't change. So the skill sets of the comedian and the dame and the baron and the girl with the lovely voice that plays the lead, and all those things have to stay, and they have to be treasured and nurtured. That's so important. Otherwise it becomes, I love the talent shows on TV, but it really, it annoys me when someone sings two notes in tune and the audience go, yeah, because that doesn't happen in real life on the stage. So don't put it, that sounds like I'm just moaning for the sake of moaning, but the way to learn how to play to a live audience is to play to a live audience. And Panto gives you that opportunity, and also to learn comedy skills and acting skills all in one venue. The only thing is, because of financial constrictions, you got like a fortnight to learn it, which is tough. And it's also tough for the guys that come in, and ladies come in to do the comedy roles, because if you've never done it before, you're relying on the script that you're given, whereas the experienced comics, what we look at it and say, okay, can't do that won't work for me, but I'll replace it with that. Is that okay for you? Yeah, that's fine, because it's the same storyline, but you've done a different gag. Whereas people without experience are just coming in and do the gags that are written for them, which might have been written for another comic years ago and don't suit them. So what I'm saying is, comics come into it nowadays without knowing who they are. For Panto, and one of the most important things in Panto is knowing who you are and how you're going to play the character. That's so important, because then you know how to make that material work for you.
You're a nice guy. You are a sensitive person.
Too much.
Would you like to be a baddie?
Wow. Not unless I could do comedy in it.
Oh, well, a comedically bad baddie.
Ooh, no one's ever thrown that question at me. Young man.
I'll take that young part.
Yeah, I remember I am very funny.
Swine.
Well, don't hit me. So, yeah. Ooh. I don't know the answer. I'd have to try.
Well, you haven't said no. That's the thing.
No, I haven't.
You've said no to Dame.
100% couldn't do Dame.
But I reckon a funny baddie.
Funny baddie? Maybe. Yeah, because I love acting. I mean, the play I wrote, Funny Ha Ha, is quite devastating at times, and tragic and painful and funny. ooh, what have you done? What have you done to me after all these years? Yeah, no, I wouldn't rule that out. Not yet, because I'm still...
In the prime.
I'm approaching my prime as a young lead comedian, don't you know? But yeah, no, but it would have to be comedy. I couldn't never turn back on comedy.
You couldn't do serious.
No, and you
Not
know,
fully serious anyway.
no, I couldn't. I mean, Steve, who played Captain Hook, Steve McFadden, who's one of my besties now, he's such a great guy. I met him years ago. Barbara introduced me to him because I did Panto with Barbara Windsor. I'll give you the quick story on that. Oh, I keep digressing. How many tangents are there in this room? So I was working for Jim Davison when he had a Panto company, not the rude ones, the family ones. He had different companies. Anyway, so I was doing the Des O'Connor show on TV, and Barbara Windsor was watching, and she loved it, and she rang Jim and said, I want him as my buttons. So Jim rang me, do you want to work with Barbara Windsor, Nottingham Theatre Royal? Yeah, not the Playhouse, no, the Theatre Royal. And I said, hello? Yes. And that's the year she became quite ill and couldn't do it. And it was devastating. And later, her husband, Scotty, was with First Family. And he told me that Barbara had always said, if she was able to do pantomime again, if she was well enough, it would have to be with me. So anyway, she came out of EastEnders, went to Bristol, and part of the contract was brand new set, Andy Ford as a comedian. I was actually one of the clauses in the contract. So, time with Barbara, it was so great. And I think she was sort of starting to struggle a little bit with what's affirming her now, and wrong word, but we all know that Barbara's not well at the moment. She's the loveliest person, and so we had just the best conversations ever. She'd sit on my couch in my dressing room. We were right opposite each other, because she'd always come in early for the shows, and I always go in early for the shows. Oh, pros, you see, make sure you're there in case something goes wrong, traffic, you never know. So we're having a cup of tea and talking. She's telling me all about the carry-on films, and I would say something like, what was so-and-so like? She'd say, miserable. That's it. And anyway, it was because this is the stuff. I love Barbara. I mean, I just loved her. And I grew up watching the carry-ons, and she was telling me all about them. And she said, do you like Kenny, darling? And I said, Kenneth Williams was one of my heroes. She said, all right, darling. And then, this is your half alcohol, blah, 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 blah. So she goes back to her dressing room. I lock my dressing room door because I'm going for a shower. So I have a shower, put my underpants on like you do, start doing makeup and stuff, unlock the door, not because I'm an exhibitionist, but because wardrobe might want to bring some clothes and see you to. Anyway, pardon me, I opened the door and a book fell through, Born Brilliant. Got it there, I'll show you in a minute. And it's a biography of Kenneth Williams. I thought, blimey, where did you get that one? And I opened it up, and I'll show you in a minute, she's written the most lovely thing about, I hope you go on to be the star you deserve to be. I'm so happy to be working with you. But just the loveliest thing ever. And my heart's going, oh my God. So I go straight in her room, open the door, and she's there in bra and knickers, having a microphone fitted. And I got this book, and I'm saying, Barbara, thank you so much. That's all right, darling. And Scott, her husband's looking at us, and we're chatting away in our underwear. And he said, this is possibly the most bizarre conversation I've ever seen in my life. I did a stand-up routine in that Panto, and every performance, I think we did 52 shows, I'd look to the right, and there was Barbara standing watching me. She watched every stand-up bit I did in that panto. And one night I came off stage and she said, you changed a word there, darling. I said, yeah, I did. She said, did you think it was funnier? And I said, yeah. And she said, all right, darling. Straight away, I changed it back. The next show, I changed it back. But she cared so much, and she loved watching me. She is the loveliest of friends. I love her so much, and I send my love to her all the time through Scott. I mean, we talk a fair bit, but she was, my hero, Barbara Windsor.
And to have you in a contract.
Yeah. She was so great for me, and so genuine as well. She told me so many stories, not all of them I can tell you here. But then one day I met Steve McFadden there because he came in to see her and she introduced me. I'd met him briefly before when I worked with Carol Taunton and Joe Swash. But that day we had a little bit more of a chat. So when I eventually worked with him in Plymouth, it's like we'd been introduced. We didn't know each other that well. And I said on the photo shoot, the promo, I said, I got some ideas for comedy. Would you go along with stuff if I suggested stuff? And he said, whatever you want me to do, I will do. I trust you completely. I've seen the way you work. Barbara's told me all about, how you are ethically. He said, you tell me what you want me to do and I'll do it. How great is that? Because when you're working with some of these big stars, the idea is not to outshine them. The idea is to be as good as you can be and be respectful and bring out their talent, which is a completely different skill set to your own talent. So it's not always about who gets the best round of applause. Of course, we all care about that a bit, but you do. When I worked with David Hasselhoff, didn't make a clank that one when I dropped it. When I worked with David Hasselhoff, I'd written this routine, right? In an airport, I was cruising somewhere and I was sitting in an airport and I'm thinking, what am I going to do with David Hasselhoff? Because he's not a comedian. He's a great personality. So I came up with this idea of Mr. Smee, and Hoff had been through this thing with the burger on YouTube. He was in a bit of a state and was eating a burger and running around the floor, and it had gone worldwide. So I thought I quite like the idea of Captain Hook, if he's all right with it, lying on a bed and Smee with the glasses asking him questions like a psychologist sort of thing. So I wrote this. He was up for that. Then I thought, I think we should do a duet. He's got a great voice. I could make it funny in between. So I wrote my version of Wind Beneath My Wings. I don't know if you've seen it or not.
No, I've not.
So basically, let the Hoff be the Hoff and let Andy Ford be Andy Ford. So he would say, it must have been cold there in my shadow. And I'd say, yeah, it's flipping freezing. To never have sunlight on your face. That's why you saved me a fortune in Nivea. You were content to let me shine. Yeah, but you look lovely in the spotlight, Captain. You always walked one step behind. Yeah, because I got little legs. And so I did a gag or a line in between. Did you ever know that you're my hero? Because I wear my pants over my tights. So I did a funny in between all of it. And there was a line in there I'd written, I can fly higher than an eagle. And I said, or possibly a budgie. Right? Exactly. You laughed straight away. I laughed straight away. Everyone I told laughed straight away. He said to me in rehearsal, budgie? That's not funny. I said, no, it's funny. Believe me. I don't think it's funny. So, we're in rehearsals in Bristol, and the juveniles are in watching a run. Kids are going to be in the show, they're watching a run of it, so we're doing it. Possibly a budgie. Woof! Everyone laughs their heads off, and he looks at me, winks, and that's it. We never look back. And on there's a video of it, I think, on YouTube of us doing it together. And he's even playing with the idea of budgie, possibly a budgie. Oh, budgie! And he really went with it. But David was a joy to work with him, and I've worked with legends like Henry Winkler of the Fonz. What a great guy to work with he was, and generous. I mean, I think the bigger the stars, normally, the more generous they are, because you can get to the top, but you don't stay there if you're not a nice person. That's what I feel.
Going back then to the budgie word.
Yeah.
Budgie's a funnier word than pigeon.
Yeah. Oh, don't get me started on that. Jethro and I would sit with the aid of some McCallaghan's or McClacken's whiskey. We'd sit
Something
at his
medicinal,
club.
yeah.
Yeah, something medicinal. We'd sit there, just me and him at his bar, me and Jethro, for hours talking about why 47 is a funnier word than 43. and I would say, but if I add and 3/4, it's funnier. 47, 3/4. Words are so important. One word's funny, another word isn't. And so, budgie is a funny word, but it also works well for my accent. There are probably words that work better in the Geordie accent than they do in the West Country accent, and vice versa. You're gonna. That's why I'm saying, flipping it back to what we were talking about 8 hours ago, that when a lead comic in inverted commas who has an experience of it comes in and sees a script, he'll just deliver what's there, as opposed to knowing the words and the cadence and the sing-song nature of the way they speak and what words suit them. They haven't got the experience to do that. And that's the place I'd like to jump in and help people. We did a full circle then, didn't we?
That was good, though.
Yeah.
That was good.
Are you learning, Hayden?
I've got my notebook in hand.
Because I don't know what I'm talking about.
Because you've got this big long list here.
I know.
Of all these stories. I don't know how many you've crossed off or any.
I think I crossed off one. Oh, I've got to tell you this one. I worked for lovely David Lee Pantone in Doncaster. Pardon me, just coughing there, sound effect. And Maureen Nolan, loveliest of ladies. I worked with her sister later, no longer with us, a lovely Bernie. Oh my God, she was so lovely. I love Bernie. So in Doncaster with Maureen, and my wife Michelle is in the corner. She's a DSM. So David, lovely man, would write all his own songs so he didn't have to pay PRS. Right?
Of course, understandable, yeah.
Which is fair enough. For people that don't know, PRS is the fees that you have to pay for using someone else's music or songs. So he'd written all his own songs, and there was Cinderella. So it was the end of the first half. Snow, ponies, the coach, buttons on the back, fairy godmother. This is one of two stories. I'll get this one done first. So anyway, it's the end of the first half, and Maureen's singing a song that David wrote. I think it went, Cinderella, the belle of the ball. This is that sort of tune. And then she hit a blank. She couldn't remember a word of the song. But she's a Nolan, so she kept going. And you know, catchphrase, say what you see. She sang what she saw. Oh, it was the funniest thing ever. Cinderella, the belle of the ball. Blank. And it is snowing and ponies on the stage. There is Buttons standing over there. And she literally sang what she saw. I'm crying. My wife's in the corner trying to call the lighting and that. Tears rolling down her legs. And it's just one of the funniest moments in the history of pantomime for me, because I was there. How I did whip myself, I'll never know. And we finished it. The curtain came down. She looked at me and she said, I've no idea. And then one day, I had an entrance from the back of the theatre, Civic Theatre in Doncaster. And the lead up to it is Cinderella was put into a trance, and so the fairy godmother gets her out of it. Ting, this is going to happen, that's going to happen. Ting, wakes her up. Anyway, so the drummer's on the cymbals, like 20 seconds. Where is she? My wife will tell you, she's in the wings going, Miss Nolan, you were due on stage. You've missed your entrance. Miss Nolan. The cymbals are going, and Cinderella, oh, what a shame you can't see this. Cinderella is frozen in a position, waiting to be pinged by, and the drummer's, no, it's a minute. And I'm at the back thinking, am I ever going to get on? Miss Nolan to the stage, please, Miss Nolan. She runs up the aisle, up the corridor towards the stage, with her dress up around her knickers, running. Oh my God, she was doing arrow words in the dressing room, I think. Oh my God, she gets to the stage, and Michelle says, get on. And she says, me wand. And so I said, don't worry about the what. She went all the way back to the dressing room. Eventually comes out and it says, this is going to happen, that's going to happen. Ping, and goes off. Right? And then she wakes up. Oh, if only Buttons was here. And then I came on. But she pinged her, came off the stage. And she said to Michelle, poor cow couldn't really talk her way out of that one either, could she? Oh, it was just the funniest. The fact that the girl had been on stage for 2 minutes waiting, and then she realised she'd forgotten the wand, but went all the way back. Beautiful.
Have you ever missed a cue?
Don't think so. There's that lovely old story of the two old actors, isn't there? And one's not on for ages, and he goes out front into the circle and sits with his mate and watches what's going on the stage. And they're talking. He said, yeah, she's very good. I think good future for her. I think so too. Oh, you'll like this bit. This is where I come on. Oh my God. that happened, and just sort of another lovely story, but I can't tell you. I'll tell you afterwards. But you couldn't.
Does it need bleeping?
Oh, all the way through.
Oh, okay.
Non-stop. But so when I was on the tour in Panto, I did a rude one called Jack and His Beanstalk, and for comedy effect, the giant was Kenny Baker, who was R2-D2 from the Star Wars films, and he'd do a spot every night. All of me, why not take all 3 foot 2 inches of me? And then he'd do a load of gags about the war, no longer with us lovely man. And then he'd finish off by playing the harmonica, because he was in the mini-tones. Anyway, one night, and I think we're in Worthing or Brighton somewhere. So the cast, Miss Whiplash is having a fag upstairs in the green room. In the days you could do that. And so Kenny's on for 20 minutes, right? And suddenly Kenny starts playing the harmonica, and my wife's going, what's he playing the harmonica for? And then he finishes the song and he's going, Whippy, Whiplash, where are you? She's running down the stairs, her wig scoot around the stage. Oh, sir. And then he came off and said to Michelle, my wife in the wings there, what happened? And then he went, oh, I forgot to do my act. I forgot to do my act. That was his reason for being on the show, to do a 20-minute spot. And he just went straight into the harmonica. And everyone else is relaxing. We've got 20 minutes here. Bang.
So you were saying earlier on about this confidence in comedy thing that you started up. How did that come about for a start, and what's it about?
Well, I started doing comedy lessons because I care a fair bit about comedy. Plus, I thought if people came to it, I can earn a bit of money that way as well, obviously, and use the skills that I've acquired over the years to help people that want to go into the business. And then I was talking to someone, I can't remember who it was, friend, and said, but most people don't want to go into comedy. People just would like to be have your confidence. And someone actually said that to me after a gig one night. I don't want to be a comedian. I just want to have your confidence when I'm talking to other people. And I thought, well, there's tricks of the trade in comedy that you could use in everyday life. It's something simple, like if you're with mates and the conversation is about one thing, but you want to tell a joke that you've heard that you think is really funny, but it's about a different subject, and how to turn the conversation around so that it fits in seamlessly. And, you know, for example, give me two subject matters, any two subject matters.
Teaching and...
Well, miles apart, so they're completely different.
Teaching and roadworks.
Roadworks. Okay. So I went to teacher training college, and I used to go on a Tuesday night. There was a girl I fancied there. I can't remember her name, Jeffrey, I think. But it was, so you do a gag around that, blah, 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 blah. And every Tuesday, without fail, we'd meet up there. I loved it. And the only thing I didn't enjoy was the flipping journey. And the road works on the way. Oh my God! Every week and then you do a gag about that. So it's quite an easy transition. I did one of the examples I gave is on the course I'm trying to get them right. One was a nuclear explosion. One was an alarm clock, and one was cake or something. One was gardening. Anyway, so you'd go from a gag about a nuclear explosion, and you say whatever the gag was about nuclear explosion, say you had to get to an alarm clock next. So I'm sitting there watching the news, and this thing comes on about nuclear explosion. So you do the nuclear explosion gag, and you say, of course, it's shouldn't be joking about because it's devastating, because it kills all vegetation, and that'd be not good for me because I love my gardening. Say, always have to. And I make the most of the early mornings when I'm gardening, by the way, because I've got this fantastic new alarm clock. You do your gag about your alarm clock there. So it's a way of making conversation bend to the subject matter you want to talk about. And that's what comedians do all their life. If you get a load of gags, you stick a great one at the beginning, a fantastic one at the end, 2 or 3 in the middle, and then you've got to find a route map to join all those gags together so they become a story. And then the story can become so funny that you end up kicking out a couple of the gags because the story is funnier than the gag. But that's the way how I string a routine together. I do gags that make me laugh, and then find a tributary to take me to the next gag. So that's a skill set that most people don't have, but it's quite an easy one to learn. So if you're in the pub and they're talking about pasties and you've got a gag about the football, you can say, well, I don't eat pasties anymore. I did when I was younger. Always have a pasty when I went to the football, see Exeter City. And, I'll never forget this one day. You do your gag about football. So it's an easy skill set, but not if you don't know it. If you don't know that skill set. And it gets easier the more you practice it. So I do that with comedy. And I've got lessons. I've got... ideas on there, like you stand in front the mirror and you look directly into your own eyes, which is not the easiest thing in the world to do. Just stare at yourself and have this intimate contact. Every morning for about 4 or 5 minutes, you look into your own eyes and say, good morning, Andy, how are you today? What are you going to do then? Well, I'm thinking after I've cleaned my teeth, I shall definitely have to go in the garden. That shed is such a mess. What are you going to do when you finish doing that? Well, I need to go shopping because we're out of butter. I say butter, what I mean is soft margarine. And you just make a conversation to yourself, but you keep the eye contact up, because if you can keep eye contact up with yourself, which is a very awkward thing to do, the next thing is like making eye contact with you, which is it's easy for me because it's something I've learned. I've taught myself. I don't know if I taught myself in the way that I explain it on the comedy course, but I know that way works. And I've had people contacting me from all around the world saying I talk to myself every morning, and generally my conversation is more fluent. And then you have to lose hesitations and stuff, because hesitation sounds like you don't know what you're saying to someone, or you're not saying it with conviction. And so the way to get rid of hesitations is to keep talking until you got something to say. So, for example, if I'm trying to think of a gag, I'm on stage and the gag's popped up my head, but I need to get it back, I'll just keep talking until it comes back to me. Look at you laughing, and you know what's coming there. Have you seen this show before? And then the gag comes in your way. And I'll tell you who's used to do that a lot was Frankie Howard. Because he would say, no, Mrs. Titty ye not, no. And another thing, what, really? Is that the way you want to believe? And then the gag comes, and then he does the gag. So he used his style of personality to fill in the gaps between gags. And so he could go out on stage with 4 or 5 gags and just talk nonsense in between, just using his own personality to fill in until the next gag came to his head. Because as he got older, he started to, as we all do, forget gags a little bit. I used to be on the side of the stage with Frank Carson in 1998. Then he used to say to me, Andy, what are the first 3 jokes I do here? And I used to, every night for 6 months, I told him the first 3 gags, and then he went out and did them. And when he did them, it clicked in, and then he did another 45 minutes. But he needed to get it in first gear before he could drive. And he'd forget how to get into first gear every night and ask me what the gags were. Now, whether he was doing that too, no, he did forget. He'd stand on the side of the stage and say, well, what is it I do here, Andy? And I give him the gag and say, you're right. And then he went up, bang. And I worked once with the guy that did the chicken.
Oh, Norman Collier.
Norman Collier, the fantastic Norman Collier. And it was is Norman still with us?
He passed a few years ago, but I got his microphones. Yeah.
Funny. But so I was at the Lakeside Country Club, and I was hosting. And it was in latter stages, and I don't know whether he was struggling with some kind of memory loss or whatever. So backstage, I'd say, hello, Norman, what a pleasure to meet you. I'm Andy, I'm the host for tonight's show. What's your name again? Andy. Okay, Andy. So so-and-so's on first, and then I'll put you on. Is that all right, Norman? You've sorted out the music with the yes, all done. Lovely. 2 minutes later, you ready then, Norman? Who are you? I'm the compere. So now there's 4 or 5 incidents like that before he goes on, and he can't remember who I am. Mind you, I suppose it could be quite forgettable. So, and I'm thinking, oh my word, what's going to happen here? It's a bit doddery, but comedy idol to me. So I'm in the right state. So I introduce him. I think, oh, please, Norman, please be good. He was so brilliant, I cannot even put it into words. He was word perfect. His routine was 40-odd minutes. He didn't drop a beat, he didn't drop a word, he didn't drop a gag. Everything was absolutely brilliant. And he came off stage. I said, that was fantastic. He said, what do you do?
Bless him.
But the show remained, it was part of him. And he never got that wrong. He was struggling a little bit outside of it all, but when he went on stage, it was word perfect. And I'm thinking, will that happen to me? I don't know, might well do, but it was such an honour to work with him. He was such a funny man. But that was one of the things that first made me think, comedy's for life. You know, it's not just for Christmas, although we love Christmas Panto, but it is for life. You know, every day I wake up, I'm a comedian. Every day. I don't wake up one day and I'm not a comedian. I'm always a comedian. And how fantastic is that? Just to be able to say that. That's what I do. Love it.
Do you ever get the nerves?
I occasionally do it on big occasions. It might have been the reason why, it didn't take off, or maybe I wasn't good enough. I did the Royal Variety, I was very nervous. I did a good show, I think. I was very nervous on the Des O'Connor show. But first time I did the Des O'Connor show, I was going through some positive PMA stuff, and I think I was reading Louise L. Hayes, You Can Heal Your Life, and positivity and all that lot, and I was talking to myself in the mirror, and we were at the Digs in Blackpool, and I'd sent this video off with Des O'Connor's associate producer, because although Des had said I was going on the show, nothing had happened since. So I met the assistant producer who was up to watch Johnny Cass, and I got talking with him, and I said, Des said he wants me on the show. He said, send me your stuff. And I was doing this to mirror every morning. I am funny. I do deserve a break. This is my moment. And halfway through one of those mantras, one day the phone rang. And my manager, Brian Marshall, said, are you still funny? I said, luckily I'm hilarious. And he said, good, because you're on Des O'Connor on next Wednesday. And I brought it in. I brought in all that positivity. And then backstage, before I did that first show with Des, I was, encompassing the power of everything around me and bringing it into my being to be strong. And that's the stuff I was doing at the time. I don't do it so much now. But I felt unstoppable that night. Whereas when I did the Royal Variety show, I was very, very nervous and pacey. I tend to walk a lot before I go on stage, but in Panto, not so much nowadays.
Not even on the first night.
I did a couple of years ago when First Family had gone and Kudos had taken me on, and Nick Thomas always goes to the opening night in Plymouth. And I was a little bit nervous at first. I said to him after, I was a bit nervous at the beginning. He said, no, you were. He said, it didn't take long, they did it. And I thought, if well into me 50s there, I'm still a little bit nervous. Do I use that to say that's why I didn't become a massive star, or do I use it to say I still care? And I tend to think it's because I want it to be right. I do care. And, who's to say what's around the corner? This thing I'm going to create this year might be something that lifts me into this. I never give up, Hayden. I'll never give up on my business. And maybe more people will want to buy into the Andy Ford thing than currently do. I don't know. But I'll never stop. I won't stop writing comedy or thinking about comedy because I love it. And what else am I going to do,
That's true. I can't picture you as an accountant or a bank manager or something like that.
No, I do have a tweed jacket somewhere, but no, it's not for me. From being a little kid, I entertained people in the back garden, and I want to be entertaining right up until they put the lid on. Really,
that's nice to hear. Hopefully not anytime soon.
Not soon. No. What day is it?
One thing I do find myself asking comedians a lot is there still that little boy that's on that stage performing?
Always. He never leaves me now, my God. And also, you see your mum there, you want to make her proud still. Yeah, of course. When do we stop being kids? If you stop being kid, you stop growing, don't you? No, I think it's very important that... I've spoken to some hard-nosed comedians, over an odd drink or two, and we're all vulnerable. Some hide it better than others. I don't hide it as well as some of the top guys. But yeah, I don't think you can be a comedian without being vulnerable, because if another thing I teach in my course is the difference between confidence and arrogance. Confident is you're confident to learn the skills, and you're confident even as you're learning. You're confident enough to say, well, I've got stuff to learn, and when I've learned it, I'll feel a lot more confident. Arrogance is, I can do that. It's not a pressure. Yeah, of course I can do it. And then that arrogance blinds you, and you don't put the time in to learn how to do it. So they look from a distance, arrogance and confidence look very similar, but they're actually miles apart. One consists of humility and development. The other, arrogance, says, I don't need to go through a process because I'm above it all, and that can be your downfall. This is deep, isn't it?
Have you ever taken people under your wing whilst in pantomime?
Well, yeah. The lovely Matt Slack that does Birmingham makes me feel really old. Apparently I was the inspiration for him to be a comedian. And we never really worked together, and I didn't teach him whatever. I'm going to be very careful here. A couple of young lads from a very popular soap on television I worked with. Lovely personalities, but as I say, different skill sets. And one of them, I worked with him somewhere in southwest London. I don't want people going through posters to find out who it is. And so he's quite worried about the comedy. So I said, look, I've made this safe. You're going to be okay. You just look at me while I'm playing. And when I give you the nod, you just say January. You'll get a big laugh. Blah, 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 blah. January, woof. Right, so I got him through it, and he actually said to me one night, there's some producers in tonight, I'm really going to give it tonight. I said, oh, are you? Right, and the next night he said, is anyone in tonight? I said, is anyone in tonight? Flipping heck. He said, who is it? I said, it's a flipping audience. And he looked at me like, ah. So I think he didn't quite understand that. Anyway, one night in the run, we were doing okay. I was making sure I was guiding him through it, and everything that was meant to be getting laughs was getting laughs. And he said, I have to tell you, Andy, he said, I was quite worried about doing the comedy with you. He said, but no, I realise it's really easy.
Oh.
And I went, I have failed here. I have failed. And then dear lad rang me the next year and said, I've been offered another panto. I've been offered Aladdin or Wishy-Washy. I said, take Aladdin. And he rang me back, I've taken Wishy-Washy. Right, okay. And then he rang me 3 weeks before, can you write me an opening routine? I thought, no, I don't think it's the right thing to do, because even if I write you something that's constructed cleverly, I don't think you're going to be able to do it. So I think it's the first time ever I didn't do that, because if a friend asked me, I would always do it. But I suggested that he didn't take the lead comedy role, but he did. I don't know how it went. But, you know, I do care, and I help anyone out. Yeah, of course I will. But it's that thing where you've got to be willing to learn a little bit. I learned off people. When I started, Frank Carson used to sit me down and tell me where I was going wrong with stuff. Yeah, you always learn from people that have been doing it a long time. It's that. I might have gone through a phase where I'm thinking, as we all do, yeah, I could do this. And then you fall flat on your face and you think, I got so much to learn. I will listen to you very carefully and take your advice, and then use that advice, but still deliver it in my own style. But knowing that there are pitfalls out there for a comedian. I'm 63 this February, coming, and I'm still learning. I don't think I'll ever stop learning. And Panto is such a great place to learn for anyone. Don't matter what you're going to go on to do afterwards. It's good because you're encompassed by people that can all do it in their own different ways, and you just take the benefits out of that. I'm people that are doing massive stuff on TV. Lovely Carol Toynton, who did a live version of The Sound of Music on ITV a couple of years back. And I had it on in my dressing room. I was in Bristol. And I texted her afterwards. I said, I just came off stage between routines and saw my lovely Snow White being a fantastic star on TV. I cannot tell you how proud I am of you. Because... And she wrote back, Andrew, I'm crying as I read this, because when we were rehearsing together in Clevedon, she was so worried about singing. And I said, you can do musicals, girl. No, I can't. I said, trust me, I can see you doing a musical. And there she was on the biggest musical on television, live on ITV in front of millions of people. And yeah, we used to talk a lot. And she said she learned, obviously I was a comedian, but there's other stage crafts as well that you learn. It's not just comedy. That's what you do is when you work with people that can do it, you pick the pieces that you can use for your own career, and then you put them into your own delivery. It's like with singers, they'll learn stuff from working with comedians in Panto. They're not going to go on to be funny, but they might learn a line or two before they do the next song that makes the audience think, oh, well, they're a lovely person, aren't they? Just a little bit. So watch people, and you can learn even if the act is not very good, because then you might learn something that you've been doing, and then you see it presented and think, no, I shouldn't be doing that anymore. So you can learn positive, and you can... Well, everything's positive. Even if you learn to stop doing something, that's a positive, isn't it?
Who have you learnt from then, would you say, apart from comedian-wise?
Sorry, I'm walking around the room now. Who have I learnt? It's getting dark early, doesn't it? Who have I learnt from?
Not comedy, though. Not comedy.
Right. Don't take this the wrong way. But Des O'Connor was great to me, and he would never consider himself as a comedian. He's a lovely personality. I don't think he considered himself a comedian, although he did die as a comedian on the stage in Scotland and fainted halfway through his act on purpose to get off. That's a true story, by the way. But yeah, when I did the Raw Variety Show, I'll never forget this if I live to be attractive. When I did the one laugh every 35 seconds, did the Raw Variety, and it was a tough old crowd. They were a tough crowd, and a lovely big star, I don't think I should mention names, went on and died. But the editing was so great that it looked like he didn't. But that was one thing with Des that I noticed. He's so good at television. Did a couple of gags, and the audience were a little bit John Lennon's Rattle the Jewellery. So they weren't perfect for their... A lot of comedians have told me the Royal Variety can be quite a tough crowd. Anyway, Des was doing these gags, getting nothing. But after each gag, he did a chuckle, looked to camera, then did the next gag, got nothing. Then did the next gag. You put a laughter track under that. Oh my God, he ripped it. He ripped it. When it went out on TV, he ripped it sideways. But being there, it was a different gig. So here's a man who knows his trade so well that he always looked like he was storming, even when it wasn't happening. Wasn't his fault. It was a tough old crowd, and it was funny stuff he was doing. But the guy is so professional that he knew what the output would be on TV, and he played it. And that just blew me away, that someone knew exactly what their product was and how it be presented to the people of the United Kingdom. Genius. That was almost like the Eric and Ernie thing. That moment when I watched Des work, and I thought, how great is that? Because we all can have tough times, but when it's such an important gig, you don't let any chinks of negativity come in there. You just keep doing it. And he was magnificent, and one of the nicest people I've ever worked with. And he did great things for my career, Des O'Connor. He was so nice to me. So yeah, I learned definitely, and I didn't learn anything comedically there. I learned about confidence and presentation from that man who's a genius, I think.
Was that the Palladium then?
It was the Victoria Apollo. Yeah, that's where it was. And it was just fantastic. And I walked to because there wasn't enough dressing rooms backstage for everyone in the show, I had to walk back to a hotel to get changed, and I was walking back there with the Spice Girls. Yeah, they were on the show. Celine Dion, give me a lovely smile, and then went back, changed in my tuxedo, pressed for the lift, and just Brian Connolly in there. And we just chatted all the way down. Yeah, lovely. It was a great time, and we were chatting in the green room, which was a pub next door, before we met the Queen. We all came drunk. Michael Ball, Jonathan Ross, Joe Pasquale, Andy Ford, all were sitting around chatting. That was great. And I learned from them how confident everyone is. They're just, I'm a lot more confident than I was when I was getting all my breaks. I cared too much, and I think that's what made me so nervous. So, you know, if something happened now, maybe I'd be in a different situation. But I don't think I'd be the comedian I am if I didn't care. I might be better.
So at 30, how old were you then when you first started Panto?
About 36.
36. So you've given up a lot of Christmases.
Yeah. My wife never lets me forget that. Oh, to have a normal Christmas. I hate flipping Christmas because we're normally miles apart. We were together this year, but normally she's with her family up here, and if I'm in the West Country, at least I've got my family around me. And then Charlotte and I would get together New Year or whatever. But yeah, Christmas is work. Christmas is work. That's just what I do. And most important part of the year for me.
You said you performed a lot in the West Country, but you've just come from Dartford.
Yeah, well, I didn't have a problem. I don't think I had a problem. There may have been two people that struggled to understand it, but you slow it down a little bit. And it puts it on more when I'm down in the West Country, like strengthen up a little bit, say. But the accent's going to be there. And this little routine I wrote for myself and Steve, which is Steve would say, "Where is he, Mr. Smee?" And I would say, "All right, my lover." And he'd say, "Don't call me that." And I say, "Sorry, my handsome." He said, "That's better." "You prefer my handsome?" "Yeah." "All right, my lover." And I'd rewritten it for Dartford, and on the script Steve said, "What's this?" So the version I was going to do there was, "Mr. Smee, where are you?" "All right, Treacle." "Don't call me that." "Oh, sorry, sweet cheeks." "That's better. You prefer sweet cheeks?" "All right, Treacle." And he said, "Why have you done that?" And I said, "Well, I don't, it's not set in concrete, but I don't know if people in Dartford are going to get Lover and my handsome." He said, "I think we should try it your way because that's who you are." So we did Lover and handsome, and it worked a treat to, Kentish people.
Yes.
And they laughed in the right places. So, and I did "Hello, my lover," as opposed to "All right, my lover," which the West Country people would pick up on. But Dartford, I thought, let's just underline it a little bit. "Hello, my lover. You prefer my handsome? All right, my lover." So I just strengthened it up a little bit so that they'd pick up the words. The comedy's the same, delivery is slightly different when you're playing to people that don't feel they're part of the same community as you. Do you know what I mean? And you have to lend yourself. And when I chat with the kids in the song sheet, and they'd say, "What's your name?" "Damien." "All right, leave it at." And I'd do a little bit of that with them, just to show Willing that you're part of their theatre in their homeland. And so you do a little bit, but you've got to stay faithful to yourself. You have to adapt, don't you? What does the military say? Adapt and overcome.
Is that what it can be like sometimes, a battle?
Yeah.
I will make
It's
them laugh.
comedy. It's comedy. Of course it can be a battle. Of course. And I don't know any comedian that hasn't walked off to the sound of their own feet. You know? It happens. How can you get... Johnny Casson. You know Johnny Casson?
I know Johnny,
Fantastic, Johnny Casson.
And his bag.
Yeah. He once said to me, you can't be a good comedian without having been a bad comedian first. You have to learn. You don't just come out of the egg as a good comedian, you know. There's a bit of nurturing that goes on. And you've got to have the confidence to think, I'm funny now. Well, I'm funnier now than I was last week. A week later, well, I think I'm funnier than I was last week. And even though I was funnier than I was the week before, you have to grow. There's no point in doing it else. I'm sure, you know, Jim Davison is delivering his comedy more confidently than ever, and that comedy will have changed slightly with the way he looks and the era that he's in. Comedy has to be adapted to what's in front of you. You can't just do the routine. I know comedians do that. Years ago, you see, the difference was when you were in variety, you'd be touring the country, so you could do the same routine every night because you were playing to different audiences. But with the advent of TV and stuff, once you've done that material now, it's dead. But for me, that's good because I love writing and I love sitting down and creating something new. I walk around the garden and my wife says, oh, God, no one can see you because you look like a flipping idiot, lunatic. I'm in the garden just laughing my head off because I've just thought of something funny. And then I'll come in and write it down and I'll put it on my iPad or whatever and then try and crowbar it. And then you'll hear some gags and you have to adapt them to suit me. What was that lovely gag I heard the other day? Oh, just beautiful. So, my mate had a bit of an accident the other night. And I don't know whether he was drunk or did it for a laugh, but he accidentally swallowed a load of Scrabble tiles. I thought, well, that comes out the other end, that could spell disaster. How funny a gag is that? That is someone had actually put that on Facebook. But how funny is it? It's just so funny. And I'm already doing a routine about getting older. And one of the things is I go to a library because I'm trying to improve myself. I want to be a better granddad for grandchildren, more inspired. So I went to the library and there were some books on hobbies. And there was a book on how to make a fortune from tennis. I read a bit of it. I mean, what a racket. And then there was a load of books on Scrabble. I thought, I have a word. And then I went to a department, and then I could tag that other gag in with that one. And then I went into a department called it Miscellaneous, spelled miscellaneous. And there was a really unusual book there called How to Sharpen Pencils in the Dark. Well, I could not see the point. Just lovely gags that other people aren't doing, but I string them all together in a routine. I find the gags, and then I'm going to go to the library in this section. So there's all different things, you know. I went through a section about the shipbuilding industry. I mean, that was riveting. And then I get to the art section. Some people like art, some people don't like art. I love art. But I was at a gallery the other day and there was a bloke standing next to this thing saying, oh, it's disgusting. I suppose they call this modern art, do they? I think it's disgusting. I suppose they call this modern art. I said, no, they call that a mirror. which is a lovely guy, completely separate and doesn't belong next to any of the other gags. But using that skill set of linking, that it suddenly becomes a routine. And then I come out of the library and I can go somewhere else and stick a load of... I wrote these the other day. I'm doing my old flipping actor. I wrote these the other day. So I'm getting older. So magazines are now adapting for people, you know, they're selling to the grey pound, people that are getting older. There's the equivalent magazine for older people. I mean, there's the world famous Vogue. There's an older version called Vague. There's Men's Fitness, Men's Fatness, the older version. And of course, the most famous magazine of all, Hello, one for older people called Pardon. And I wrote that in the garden one day, and I just made myself howl. So that's now in the routine. You'll have to edit all this out because I just waffle here.
Never. I can't do that. The song sheets then. I see you've got the proud awards for Best Song Sheet.
That's my second Pantomime award. The first one is before they actually did the awards. I won the first year of the best entrance in pantomime in the UK, where I was dressed as a fox and I did What Does the Fox Say? And then they started presenting them. I couldn't go to that one last year, but I sent a video of myself from... I filmed it here, but supposedly in Plymouth, walking around my dressing room. They'd given me Christopher Biggin's dressing room because he was hosting the awards. And I'd put up, because I love me editing, I went into this, opened the door and went to this big, sumptuous bath and all that. And then there's his own bar. So that was sent to me, that one. So I wasn't there to collect it, but that was for the best song sheet last year. And I love writing the song sheets. And that was a very West Country one, called the Janners song, because people in Plymouth call themselves Janners. Don't know why. And a good part of Devon called themselves Janners as well. So I wrote something. I always like the songs to be relevant to the area if possible. The song I did this year was just about pirates, really, but I'd like to write them. And then I sit here working out the actions that I'm going to get the kids to do. So song sheets are so important. I think it's very sad when a pantomime doesn't do a song sheet. That's like one of the boxes you've got to tick, I think. Getting kids on the stage, yeah.
Do you love the unpredictability as well?
Yeah, but also the number one rule is that the kids are the star. You don't try and take it from them. You get, I've got lots of lines that say to a little girl, hello, what's your name? Mary. How old are you, Mary? 3. And you're very beautiful, aren't you? Yes. And have you always been beautiful, or did this happen last Tuesday? And you can't fail, because if they say, I've always been beautiful, the audience go, oh. And sometimes they will say, last Tuesday. Woof. And if they go, I don't know. Oh. So make sure the questions are loaded and doesn't make them feel awkward or put upon, because some kids will cry at the drop of a hat, and you can see them when you're talking to you see them welling up because I'm right next to them. So you have to, sometimes you have to say, well, I'm so glad you're here. Is it all right if I speak to your friend over here? You're happy that you just stay there for a second.
That's how you diffuse it.
Yeah. And then, once again, you ain't going to learn that in a comedy club, are you?
No.
It's a different skill set. But it's great if you can do it, because it's part of our wonderful British tradition, the song sheet, and bringing the audience onto the stage. I think it should never die. That's so integral, I think. Not all comics do song sheets now. I'm just a bit old-fashioned. I love them.
How do you deal with a cheeky boy?
I just you give them their space, but your job is not to win. It's not your job to make him look stupid. But you do get them. I had a couple this year that were a little bit. I said to him, I said, where do you live? I'm not telling you that. I said, and that's very sensible. So it went to the next guy. And I said, where do you live? And he'd say, like Bexley Heath or something. I said, I don't think he should have told me that, do you? So I'd still get comedy out of it, but I'll leave him alone, because his sole mission in life is to make the comic look stupid, and I can't allow that. But I can't be seen like I'm not allowing that. I just let him have his space and move on. It's knowing when not to get involved, and knowing when to get involved, and knowing how far you can push them when they're going to cry, or get something out of them if there's nothing coming, So I've got lines, and I can do lines with the audience that gets a laugh, even if the kid isn't giving me anything I can work with. So I know how to survive in a song sheet. And very kindly the producers say that, I often get told I do one of the best song sheets in the country now, and I'm proud of that. Skill sets, and I love it.
When you've worked then with the big names, has that ever been, especially as well the transatlantic people, have they always got Panto to begin with?
I don't think they get Panto till they do it. Henry Winkler, the Fonz, who I consider a friend, lovely man, he said it's the most exhausting experience of his life. There's nothing he's ever done in the business that's more exhausting than pantomime. He said, and it's 2 shows every day. He said, and your brain turns into yogurt. He said, it's so relentless. But my story, a couple of stories actually, with the lovely Henry Winkler. One day, Ben Elton came in to see it. And I did the first Des O'Connor show, and Ben Elton was on it, but he filmed it on a different time, so we didn't actually meet. But he saw the show, and he was in Henry's dressing room, so I thought I could go and say hello. So I knocked on the door, and Ben Elton came up to me and shook my hand. He said, "You have funny bones." It reminded me when I was listening to your podcast with Freddie the other day that, it was Ronnie Corbett told him he had funny bones. It was Ben Elton that told me I had funny bones. And so I was writing ideas of what I wanted to do. First family would let me write the ideas, and then they'd discuss whether they'd go in the script or not. I mean, Kudos had been wonderful with me. I wrote loads of the comedy for this year's show. They were very kind. And so I'd written this routine, a logical nursery rhyme routine that I've been doing for years now. So nursery rhymes don't make sense. You ever seen a cow jump over a moon? I don't think so. Dish run away with a spoon? No way, Pedro. So I've written all these logical nursery rhymes. First one's called Humpty Dumpty. I'd like to do it for you now. Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men did absolutely nothing because it was only an egg. So I'd written all these logical nursery rhymes. So I'd written for me to do 3 and then Henry to do 1. Well, I'll try one of these logical. Anyway, lovely Peter Denyer, no longer with us, comedy writer, was in Please Sir. He wrote it and it got sent to Henry in America. And Henry had a bit of a tough time the year before with someone he worked with in comedy, no names. And, pardon me for coughing. And so what Peter had done is he thought it should have been a rule of 3 and gave me 2, and the third one he gave to Henry. But to me, the rule of 3 was I'd do the 3, and then the tag on was Henry. So anyway, I looked at the script when it came back and I said, he's given Henry the wrong line, the wrong nursery rhyme. So they said, oh, sorry, we didn't sort of realise. And they wrote to Henry, who'd read the script by then and loved it. And Henry said, so the comedian's trying to take lines off me, is he? It was a misunderstanding. So, and I understand that, because he'd had a bit of a moment a year or so before. So we turned up to rehearsal, and Henry was very nice and very polite, but I knew there was something there, because I'd been warned that this information had got confused, and he was a little bit worried that things were being changed. Anyway, 2 or 3 days into rehearsal, I wanted to do a pop idol routine that I've been doing for years with Henry. But Henry said, no, I think you should do it with someone else. And I thought, that's because you don't trust me at the moment because of this confusion. And we became friends after 2 days rehearsing. He trusted me. And I just said one day, Ian Talbot was the director, and I said one day, Henry, I think you should do this routine with me. This routine that you didn't want to do originally. And he went, well, let's look at it. So we looked at it. He wanted to make a couple of adjustments. That's fine. He's a superstar, Yeah. And basically with have you ever seen my pop idol routine? I don't put that on YouTube because I still use it regularly. I want to be a pop star. Like this year, for example, I want to be a pop star. It's me. This is Steve McFadden. I told you 1,000 times you'll never make a pop star. I just need the motivation and I'm away. Make me a cocktail. All right, shall I give it a big stir? No, just a little mix. Just a what, Captain? Little mix. And I do a little mix dance into the record, a comedy dance. Short, 20 seconds or whatever. 3 of them. And then it would flip. And Steve got the tag on the last one. And you say, you're rubbish, you'll never be a pop star. And I'll say, you're no oil painting yourself, Captain. Look at those clothes I saw yesterday. You need to see a tailor. Swift. Need to see a what? Taylor Swift. And then Steve would do the dance at the end, which no one would see coming. So I had this routine, and the tag was that Henry Winkler would say to me, I think you make a rubbish pop star, you only go far away from me. Beyond land, yes, beyond land. Beyond the hills, yes, beyond the hills. Anywhere else, Captain? Yes, beyond sea. Where, Captain? And then you do, I think I got that the wrong way around, but he'd do a Beyonce dance at the end. And so we were in rehearsals, and he said, okay, we'll do it. It was the thing that all the press wrote about. It was the star thing. Henry Winkler does Beyonce headlines in all the papers and stuff. And that's because he trusted me. And do you know what I said earlier on in this about if a star thinks you're just trying to use them to enhance your own career or your own popularity with the audience, that's a bad way to go. You have to be respectful. Not respectful in a way is because you'll get more out of it. Respectful for them and for what they've done in their careers. And because they come onto your turf don't mean that you can tread on them. No way. You have to give them a great experience and make them feel appreciated and enjoy it. So whenever I work with someone that's very famous, my first protocol is, what are their strengths? What can I write in a way that makes them feel good and the audience will enjoy it as well? And then talk to them in rehearsal and see what they want to do. But respect is, find out what it means to me. I gargle with TCP. Suck it to me, suck it to me. Respect. You see,
you can't stop, can you? You can't stop.
Find out what it means to me. Yeah, so that's the way I work. And that's why I so far, I have great relationships with 95% of the people I work with. No, we're not talking about the other 5%. I will mention no names.
We'll talk about that after recording.
All right, then.
Right, then, well, this leads me on to my last question.
Okay.
Your dream pantomime. You can be in it. You can be in the stalls watching it. You can choose the production, the cast, alive or dead, and the theatre. And you could even write it if you wanted to.
Oh, I definitely want to write it. 100% I would want to write it, and it would be Cinderella, because it's my favourite panto of all time. And I would have to be Buttons. It would have to be Buttons, because I love that role so much. The fairy godmother would be Barbara. Easy. The uglies would be Eric and Ernie. The Baron Hardup would be Tommy Cooper. Cinderella would have to be a lady that I fell in love with when I was a young lad and met once. Well, she'd seen me a lot. There was a program on TV when I was a young lad called the Billy Cotton Band Show. And there's a lady singer called Kathy Kay. Alan Breeze was the male singer, Kathy Kay. Every time she came on the television to sing, I would kiss the screen. And I was gigging one night in Taunton. This lady came up and said, I've watched you a lot at Ladram Bay where you entertained, and I think you're a great singer. She said, I used to sing. Anyway, it turned out it was Kathy Kay. And I said, I love you. And she said, I love you too. And we signed each other's autograph there and then. So in her younger days, it would have to be Kathy Kay as Cinderella. So, have I missed anyone out from it? So I'm Buttons, Kathy Kay is Cinderella, Eric and Ernie are the Uglies, Tommy Cooper is Baron Hardock, Barbara Windsor. This is a lineup, isn't it?
Isn't it?
Barbara Windsor would be the fairy godmother. Dandini. Ooh. Dandini. I think Dandini would have to be... So I'm just going through so many heroes now, but I'm trying to think of someone that could do the role properly. So, yeah, well, I'm going to have to go Larry with the one that you've just shown me.
You've pinched my Larry, Larry Grayson.
I'd have to say I met Larry once. Yeah, lovely man. I was performing at a hospital outside a hospital fete in Exeter, and he was there. It was towards the end of his career, and he was really nice. His advice he gave me, he said, I think you're great, Andy. He said, I'll give you one piece of advice. I said, what's that, Larry? He said, don't let people see you auditioning. Let them see you performing in a show. Don't audition. Just do shows and let people come and see the shows. Because then you're not saying, please like me. You're saying, I'm doing all right. Do you want some of this?
Oh.
Great advice, isn't it? So that would be my lineup. And where would
Prince
it be?
Charming.
It would be...
Prince Charming.
Oh, Prince Charming. Oh, flippin' heck. Right. Who would that be?
Somebody with good looks.
Oh, I
Great
can't,
singing
I can't
voice.
do 2 rows. See what I did there? I'll be here all week. Tippy waitress. Right, well, it would be Cliff. Be Cliff Richard.
Still a good looking chap now.
Yeah, it would have to be Cliff, wouldn't it? Archetypal Prince Charming.
Swine.
Yeah.
Don't know about the singing voice.
Oh, he's very good. He sings in Joined Up, you know. I love growing up. He was a big influence on me. You know, I remember going to the pictures to watch Finders Keepers and Summer Holiday and all that lot. Yeah, no, I'd love to see Cliff. Everyone in their heyday, I assume.
Of course.
Yeah, everyone in their heyday. That would be a show I'd like to see.
And the theatre?
Oh, Hippodrome. Bristol Hippodrome. All day long. Home from home. I did 7 years there. I love me Theatre Royal Plymouth. I absolutely adore it. And where I was this year, but because I was in Bristol for 7 years, I felt I became part of it. And there was a guy who used to do paintings of it with all the people that performed it. You know, Stan and Ollie performed on that stage. You know. Mind you, I've also done the Palladium, and I walked out on the stage of the Palladium one night. It was top of the bill in the show there. Walked out, I thought, everyone who's anyone has been here. And now I am. See, all those things really mean the world to me. I'm still in love with showbiz, I think. There's people listening to this who would be sick into a bucket right now. But I do. I love it, Hayden. I care about it. Panto is very precious to me, and I want to keep doing it. And more importantly, do you want another coffee, or are you all right?
We'll go for another coffee.
Mate, I've really enjoyed the chat today. I do waffle for England, but
our listeners are going to love this.
You reckon?
Really.
I care. And
do you find yourself listening to the audience when they're coming in on the old monitor
yes,
and getting the buzz of excitement?
And the kids, and thinking that, like Freddie said on your podcast the other day, it's the first time they're introduced to theatre. So you don't go above their heads. Don't insult them. You know, give them what they want to laugh at. At the same time, keep the grannies happy and keep the mum and dads happy. You know, skill sets that will die out if we don't keep pantomime going. Keep pantomime going.
I intend to with this podcast.
Yeah, mate, what you're doing is fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.